I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 13th, 2016 meeting for the City of Columbia Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Chuck Sally, and I serve as the chair. At this time, I'd like to introduce the other members of the board. To my left, far left, Reggie McKnight. To my left, Pat Hubbard. To my right, Preston Young. To his right is Tyler Gregg, and to my far right is Regina Williams. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members of staff that will assist the board during the meeting. Brian Cook, the zoning administrator. Andrew Livingood is the deputy zoning administrator. And Andrea Wolf is the senior secretary for planning and development services. The board is charged with hearing applications for special exceptions, variances, and administrative appeals. All testimony is recorded for the record, and anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn and must come up to the podium in order to speak. No testimony can be taken from the floor. When you come to the podium, state your name and please speak clearly into the microphone because the meeting is being recorded. For those of you who plan to speak, you must be sworn. So if you are here as the applicant or to speak in any case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Brian Cook, the zoning administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Briefly just go over the conduct of the hearing as a guideline, the order of the hearing. Staff will introduce the matter to be heard. The applicant has a 10-minute limit, subject to relevancy, and the opportunities of the applicant may also be granted additional time to speak. So the applicant, again, 10-minute limit on that. Zoning staff, of course, can introduce any additional information. Any opponents are limited to 3-minute time limit. However, if you have a spokesman for an established body, a group, you are granted 5 minutes. The applicant of that will get 5-minute rebuttal at the end. Should the board have any questions for any participants in the hearing, they certainly can entertain those questions, and the board can amend their conduct of hearing at any time. Basically, we have a new system, sound system in the chambers, so if everyone could kind of speak up, that would help. We're still trying to get the kinks out of that. When you approach the podium to speak, if you would please state your name and again speak loudly into the microphone. Today, item number 6, which is 1210 Atlas Road, and item number 7, which is 1210 Atlas Road also, case 16-024 variance and 16-25 variance have both been deferred until the August 9th meeting. So if you're here for the 1210 Atlas Road, either one of those cases, it'll be held at the next month's meeting. The board uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. The board member of the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda at the beginning of the meeting. That item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The board then approves the remaining consent agenda items. If an item is removed from the consent agenda, that item will be heard after old business on the regular agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of item number 1, the approval of the June 14th, 2016 minutes. Number 2, case 16-027, special exception at 517 Winmet Drive, tax map 117020232. Item 3, 16-029 variance at 1940 Old Neck Road, tax map 1660303 and 17. Item 4, 16-030 variance, 1714 Enoree Avenue, tax map 1130607 and 12. Mr. Chairman, that concludes your consent agenda. Is there anyone on the audience or anyone on the board that would like an item removed from the consent agenda?
I see none. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda and the minutes and other items on the consent agenda subject to exhibits and any conditions that may be found in the case file summary for that application, and to adopt as the findings of the board those findings for each case found within each case file, as well as any conditions opposed.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The consent agenda is passed and the meeting minutes are approved. The next item I am recused from, so I'll be stepping down, and Pat will be taking over as chair for that hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's item number 5, 16-006 special exception at 120 Atlas Court, tax map number 16-306-0706. This is a rehearing of a special exception request. You may recall that in the March 8th, 2016 hearing, the representatives of manufacturing, construction, addition to adjacent parcel at 110 Atlas Court, Sensor, also known as SETI, appeared and objected to the proposed special exception based upon the compatibility of the recycling center and with SETI's operation. After the March 8th hearing, the applicant requested opportunity for a rehearing and submitted additional information, including a traffic study, dust, noise, and vibration study. At the May 10th meeting, the Board of Zoning Appeals granted the applicant the opportunity for the rehearing. Prior to the June 14th meeting, the representatives of both Pratt and SETI requested deferral in order for the two parties to have further discussion regarding this request. Again, this applicant's request for rehearing and supporting documentation is included in your case summary, and both applicant and potential opposition are here today. At this time, if the applicant would like to approach the podium and state their case.
Good morning. My name's John MacArthur. I'm with Haynesworth Sinclair Boyd. I represent the applicant Pratt Industries, Inc. I have with me Mr. Sean State, who was with Pratt, Mr. Vince McLeod, who was with EFI Global, who did some analysis that you have in your packages from standpoint of dust, noise, air quality, vibration, and also Todd Salvigan, who did the traffic report that you have in your package. I want to thank you for granting us a rehearing, and I'm happy to report that we have worked with SETI over the last 2 months, and we have come to agreement on conditions that we would propose that you adopt and approve our application with those conditions. A set of those conditions was sent in yesterday. SETI had a couple of numbers that they asked us to change, which we did, and I gave to Andrew, and you should have the updated set of conditions, and the if you have them in front of you, it's they have those, Andrew. If you have them in front of you, to distinguish them from the old set that is set with the two numbers at the bottom of the first page are 0.10 and 84 decibels. That's the current level. That's the current draft of the agreed to conditions. If you'll recall, SETI's concern is that they have a very sensitive manufacturing process. They were worried that the proposed recycling operation by my client, which would be an indoor cardboard and paper baling process, would disturb the environment to the extent that it would affect the levels at which that their machinery could tolerate in their processes. SETI very graciously worked with us and their attorney, Bob Fuller, and we worked through it. We had a meeting at their facility. They then took a tour of a similar facility that Pratt has in Rock Hill. We produced and explained our reports on what levels would be existing with and what was shown to exist in Rock Hill. And basically, the levels of that our consultants show already exist there. We're basically not going to exceed those. So After a lot of discussion and some back and forth, we have agreed on these conditions. I can go over these conditions as much detail as you'd like me to, and Bob Fuller can come up and confirm for the owner that they have agreed to that.
Thank you very much. This is a very promising development. One thing might help in terms of expediting decision-making is if staff, you've had a little more time to look at this than we have. Are there some on the list that we should focus on rather than having to do each one in detail?
Actually, 15 minutes ago was the first time I looked at this, but I did look over it briefly. Item number 14, the special exception is limited to Pratt into any successor user. We would object to that, as the special exception should follow the land and not an individual entity. Staff would have some concern about if it is made a condition of the special exception. At that point, staff would be responsible for enforcing it. The dust, airborne particulates, I don't really think anybody would know how to measure that on our staff. You know, again, just briefly going over that. Again, I don't know that our staff is going to count 150 trucks daily leaving or coming to a location. So it's just the practicality of if we're going to approve something conditionally before the Board of Zoning Appeals, our staff is bound to enforce that criteria in theory. So we'd want to make sure what we agree to as a staff would be something that we are skilled enough to know how to do.
We frequently impose conditions and rely on reports from outside. We don't, I mean, what I'm saying, we often approve conditions that could not be enforced but for the fact someone makes a complaint. I'm not sure that.
But it's true, but if somebody did make a complaint about airborne particulates, you know, we're kind of dead in the water. We're going to have to rely on a third party to kind of make that determination. We just wanted to be practical, what we're enforcing from a staff level. I would want to, I guess, inquire whether there would be any ability to have a deed restriction on the property with these certain criteria. I don't know the legality behind the practicality with that, but certainly a lot of these criteria staff could enforce, and they're good, and we don't have a problem with, and certainly would be amenable to doing so. We just want to make sure, again, what we agree to enforce, we can enforce.
May I try to address the enforcement issue, if I can?
Well, I think, as I understand it, the staff concerns, one is general about how to enforce something that's based on expertly run testing mechanisms, which we're just really not equipped, they're not equipped to do. So that's sort of a generic problem. Number 14, I think, I'd really want to hear what Mr. Fuller says about how SETI would think. I think his point is well made, that
I could address both of those with respect to the measuring issue, and this is provided in Section 11. SETI is the party that's concerned about, we're in a heavy industrial park with lots of usage. The only reason we're here is that we're recycling use, which is a special exception. If recycling wasn't there, then something else that could produce far more noise or dust could be there, and there would be hearing before BOZA. So what we've tried to work with SETI to do is establish these levels that exist out there now that can be measured outside and measured at different times, and to say we won't cause an excess above these levels. If SETI has a problem with their manufacturing process, they'll be the first party to go get a consultant and measure those things and come to, first presumably come to Pratt and say, we're having problems, correct what you're doing. If we don't, then I think SETI would be the ones providing anything the city would need to show that there's a violation. The issue with Section 14, and the reason we put that limitation in there at SETI's request, is part of our presentation is that Pratt is an experienced national recycling company, that they are doing this particular kind of indoor recycling that is very non-invasive in terms of environmental factors. And SETI's concern was that we don't turn around and sell our lease to one shop operator who doesn't have that experience. So at SETI's request, we agreed that it would be limited to Pratt, and should Pratt merge with a company or its entire division be sold to a company, then it would be limited, that this special exception would apply. But we can't just transfer it to Joe Blow down the street. He comes in and doesn't have the ability to do it. So that's the philosophy behind it. I don't know how that works with the zoning code. It seems to me that both of those sections should work and are what SETI would like to see in it, as I understand it.
The underlying theory is that zoning is about use of land, not about people. I know in our daily lives, those are the same, they overlap considerably, and I'm sure that's what's underlying 14. But we do run into trouble if we don't keep them separate. And the answer is that if John Doe comes along, no connection to Pratt at all, John Doe would be held to everything on the list regardless. You follow me? That if we approve it subject to all these conditions, anybody who wants to show up and do recycling is going to have to meet all of these conditions. Okay, so I realize that SETI would have greater comfort factor with both the person and the conditions. That's why I wanted to talk to Mr. Fuller a little bit, because it's his client who we're looking for comfort factor here. But we do have a problem limiting it to a particular person, entity, whatever, because it's not supposed to be about that. That's a slippery slope to bad problems.
Let me say one more thing, just in general, and then maybe Mr. Fuller can come up and address those things.
Right.
Just in general, in terms of the criteria, the 8 criteria that you have to find, y'all have had a hearing once before, and you had a hearing about a rehearing. I'm assuming you don't want to go back and receive more evidence from us on all of that, of what you've already received. But if you would, we're prepared to do that. But if you can find, subject to working out these issues, approval and compliance with all those criteria, we won't take more of your time than you want us to.
Well, this is like, suppose a confidentiality agreement that you want a federal court to agree to and they don't want to agree to it. Do you follow me? We have rules about what.
Okay. Well, if you would like to have a fuller presentation, would you like Mr. Fuller to?
I'd like to see how SETI feels about, because they're the ones that I would think have the stronger stake in number 14.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Robert Fuller. I am the attorney who has been of record in representing SETI as the objector initially on the application as presented and throughout the process of coming to these agreements. Mr. MacArthur is correct. There has been a good deal of discussion between the two companies, and they've gained a comfort level with each other, I think, in the abilities of each to be reasonable and to operate in the manner they expect to. So as I understand the concern of Mr. Cook and the board perhaps, is really related only to number 14, which would be a consideration that goes as much to the user as the use.
Correct.
In the property. I will confess that we added to this list of conditions this item for the very reason that Pratt is a contender and a well-established member of that industry's operators, and we feel very comfortable with them. I think in point of fact, the adoption of the special exception for a recycler will preclude anything except what has been established to go on that property now in the baling operation in any event. And whether it's operated by another company or entity or body, they would be obliged to meet every criteria of the special exception that has been adopted together with the conditions that have been imposed by the board. I don't think even with that one, I don't think there is any imposition of a duty on the board for enforcement that is outside of the general bounds of its ability to operate, but we would not crater the agreement to approve the special exception with conditions if 14 were eliminated.
So,
balance of it would contain all of the effective enforcement remedies that would be necessary to make sure that whoever's operating is operating in a manner that does not exceed the standards that have been already adopted by the board to comply with the 5 criteria and the special conditions for a recycling facility.
so I want to make sure I understand, your client would have no objection to deleting number 14?
We would prefer that it be there, but we don't think we have to have it.
Right, so that we can perhaps go forward and get what would now be 1 through 14 with 1 deleted.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions from other members of the board? Thank you. I don't know if you were through, Mr. MacArthur.
I guess the issue before us now is, again, how much further review you'd like to have, or would you just like to walk through the factors? The criteria that you have, we had no opposition to our application other than SETI, and with these conditions, they are satisfied. So I would submit to you on the first criteria, the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular traffic or vehicular and pedestrian safety, and adequate provisions are made in the proposed exception for parking and for loading and unloading. I believe we meet those. Our parking is on site. Our traffic study, if you will look at it, it actually has the criteria under for a building of that size, what an expected truck traffic could be, and it's substantially more than our maximum truck traffic that we've specified in the conditions. So I submit that we meet that criteria. Second criteria, the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on adjoining properties in terms of environmental factors such as noise, lights, glare, vibration, fumes, or odors, obstruction of air, or light and litter. If you compare the conditions and the limits in our proposed conditions to the reports made by our consultant EFI, you'll see that our caps are really what's there now. We're not going to cause any significant increase in any of those things, and we've established by the documentation we've submitted. And in addition, SETI has accepted, even though they have a highly sensitive operation, that criteria in effect is met. Item 3, the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area, to include a review of the orientation and spacing of buildings. This is an existing building. We're not going to add on to it. We're going to cut a couple of doors into it as described in the application. But I would submit that it's obviously, since it's an existing building, it complies with this section. Item 4, the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on public safety or create nuisance conditions detrimental to the public interest, or conditions likely to result in increased law enforcement response. I don't believe there would be anything about this would involve increased law enforcement response. We've already shown that its traffic is within the expected range, so we don't believe that there are any safety or nuisance conditions to be considered. And certainly with the criteria we talked about in the condition, we've addressed those concerns with respect to our neighbor. Item 5, the establishment of the proposed special exception does not create a concentration or proliferation of the same or similar types of special exception use, which concentration may be detrimental to the development or redevelopment of the area in which special exception use is proposed to be developed. This is an M2 zone property that's area. It's an industrial park, in effect. It has various uses of distribution and manufacturing, and we believe that recycling, while it's not repetitive of other things in the immediate area, is consistent with it and would not violate that criteria. Item 6, the proposed special exception is consistent with the character and intent of the underlying district as indicated in the zoning district description with any applicable zoning overlay district goals and requirements. The area is zoned, the property is zoned, and the area is zoned M2. So that's as heavy industrial use as you can have. So we feel like that is an indoor baling recycling facility would be consistent and meet that criteria. Item 7, the proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with the permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property. Again, these are all M2 uses. The only objection we've had from a neighbor has been from SETI, and we resolved those objections, so we believe we've shown that we will be compatible. The proposed special exception will not adversely affect the public interest. Recycling is something we all want. It has to be done somewhere. This is kind of the most limited of recycling. It's paper that's simply delivered indoors, baled, and put on trucks and taken away. We feel like that is in the public interest, that is done somewhere, and M2 is the appropriate zone to do that. So those are our positions on the criteria, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller, was there anything you wanted to add?
Thank you. No, Mr. Chairman. We are satisfied that the general special exception criteria will be met. The added criteria, because it's a recycling facility, are including the conditions essentially met, and so the objection has been withdrawn to the placement of this particular type of recycling there.
To phrase it basically the way Mr. MacArthur did, with the conditions, number 7, compatibility is satisfied.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak for or against the grant of the special exception? With that, not seeing anybody, we'll close taking of testimony, and we can move to board discussion. Do I hear a motion? Well, I have grandchildren visiting, and I want to go home, so I'm going to make a motion. I move that we approve the request for a special exception. I want to make sure. Subject to two general conditions. One is that everything will be done in accordance with the various documents submitted in this case and the testimony relating to this case, and that the general rule about vacancy and abandonment will apply as it would to any use. In addition, for simplicity, do I have to read them into the, can I just incorporate by reference?
Yes.
So, is item special exception conditions applicable to 120 Atlas Court that we have been presented today. Item 14 is deleted. Item 15 then becomes number 14. These conditions will also apply to the special exception. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the next item on the agenda.
Is item number 8, 16-028 variance at 715 Gervais Street, tax map 089120707. It's a variance to the parking requirements to expand an existing Jimmy John's restaurant. I'll also bring your attention to the fact that currently there are a few parking spaces that back out onto Gervais Street from this location. They are not the safest parking spaces. Backing out onto Gervais Street is certainly a challenge sometimes with traffic speeding by. So the intent with this expansion would be to remove those 3 parking spaces that currently back out into Gervais, and a courtyard, again, an example is in your presentation, for dining will be presented there, some landscaping, so it'll kind of soften the front off of Gervais Street. So staff has in support of this for pedestrian and traffic safety along Gervais Street. But the applicant is here and they can explain the request to you further.
Thank you.
Afternoon. Hey, my name's Tim Hance. I'm the architect working with Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's is a franchise, and so I just site adapt them for them. But when they went in to request expansion for this, and they're expanding into the back portion of their building now, which is an additional 800 square feet, and I presented it to the city and Brian. One of the first things he said was, can we get rid of the parking spaces on the front backing out onto Gervais Street? So I took that back to the owner, and he said, you want me to give up spaces? And I said, yeah, they'd like to give up the spaces in the front because there's nobody else that backs onto Gervais Street. And excuse me. Sorry. So we can get the 8 count on the site down the right side here, and then we would just propose that we get to put some sort of courtyard or some sort of space in the front there, green space, where they in front of the expansion. There actually, as the building sits now, there are 2 suites, and Jimmy John's was in the front half, which is 1,400 square feet. And if you see the top of the page right there, where that dotted line is, they're just expanding back into that space back in the back there. There's actually 4 spaces on the front. There were only 3 defined, but there's actually 4 up there. But those are the ones that we're proposing to get rid of, that back directly onto Gervais Street.
And it's just it's the elimination of those Gervais Street spaces that makes them required to get a special exception.
That's part of it. They basically, 24 parking spaces are required for a restaurant, but it is reduced to 12 because of the design overlay. So basically what they need is 12 parking spaces, and they are proposing 4 existing. So it's a variance of 4 spaces.
Proposing 8 existing. Yeah, that's right.
Does anyone have any questions? Is there anyone else here to speak in favor or in opposition to this request? Any discussion on the board?
Yeah, we've got a courtyard shown on grade there, and I talked to Peter yesterday, and he said, Tim, I'm fine if we give up the courtyard and do all green space out there, just to soften that. So we'll just do the 12-foot expansion on the front, and then from there, we'll just give the option of the courtyard versus the green space, one of the two. I think it'll be nice on that corner. We don't have anything green on that corner right now. I think this will complement, Grill Marks is right beside there. There's a green space, a small, tiny alleyway there, right there beside that too.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the request for a variance, case number 16-028, mainly due to the extraordinary and exceptional conditions and concerns with the parking and backing out onto Gervais.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Next case, item number 9, 16-031 special exception at 1829 Senate Street. Tax map numbers 11482-01-01 to 11482-1904. Basically, it's a special exception to establish a rooftop wireless communication facility. This is an existing structure. They want to put this, in essence, an antenna on the top of the building. We, as staff, didn't find any prior special exception approvals for this. So in essence, it will be adding less than 10 feet to an existing structure that is over 40 foot in height. This is permitted in this district with a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals. In addition to the standard criteria that you would normally look at for a special exception, you will find in your packet 17283H1, which is A through E. There are just a few additional criteria that you should look at when deliberating on this request. Some of it is designed for, you think of the old school monopole or lattice, cell tower that we think in traditional sense, but the regulations would apply for this antenna locating on this building as well. The applicant is here and can answer any questions, and I certainly can answer any questions if you have them.
I'm Scott Brantley with Tower Engineering Professionals, engineer over this particular project. I'll be representing T-Mobile here as well as the homeowners association that is over the building. As you said in the intro, this is for T-Mobile to co-locate on an existing structure. The antennas that will be placed will be flush mounted to the penthouse at the top of the building, and all other equipment will be installed inside of that penthouse and be non-visible. I know that T-Mobile in the future is particularly looking at maybe adding additional antennas. Currently, they're looking at 3 on the exterior of the building. They had gone back and forth about potentially going up to 6, so it would be 2 in each sector. Main focus here is to try and cover a portion of the university that's nearby. But that's kind of the basics. And
All right, well, Scott, do you have the criteria for the special exceptions in front of you there?
I do not.
You have your application in front of you? Can we get him that, Brian? I think just for the record, what we'd like to do is to go through each of the criteria so that we can, have that in the records. You answered those in the application that you made.
All right.
This already.
Not a problem. I can go through each one. Vehicular and pedestrian safety. Number of trips to the site after construction's completed is minimal. And this particular project should not require a crane based off the equipment they're installing, so I don't see any issues there. Environmental factors. There'll be no exterior lighting. There was a NEPA done on this particular project, so we can provide that as well for any environmental issues from that standpoint. Aesthetics, the antennas should be flush mounted. They'll be painted to match the exterior of the building. Public safety, due to the fact that they're well above the elevation of any residence and at the very top of the unoccupied penthouse. I don't see any issues with that. Concentration. I don't know if there's really anything applicable from our particular project for concentration. Character, I know the property owners there are concerned about this turning into a cell farm or something like that. They're open to future co-locators, but they are also concerned about the aesthetics of the building moving forward. And then compatible, I think from a application standpoint, this is much more compatible for the area than, say, a lattice structure or a monopole. And then that kind of funnels into public interest as well.
And then there's additional criteria.
I think I kind of covered the not endangering the safety of the residents, the fact that the penthouse is uninhabitable. I think there shouldn't be any issue there. There's no roof access on this particular facility because there's no parapet. For B, aesthetics, due to the low amount of antennas and the majority of the equipment being installed inside of the penthouse, the application here should do its best to not change overall aesthetics of the neighborhood or impair anything in the neighborhood. The communication towers within 1,000 feet. There's not any on the university, which is the main interest area that T-Mobile is trying to get after here and cover. And that's goes into the collocate. They did contact the university to see if they could do any antennas on campus, and they were not open to any applications there. And that kind of funnels into the next one, the engineering capabilities of the structure. We did do a structural analysis, so that's been provided.
Very good. Is there anyone else to speak in favor or in opposition to this request? Are there any questions from the board? Do I have a motion then to for this special exception? Then I will move that we approve this request for special exception subject to the, based on the testimony and application of the applicant, written application of the applicant, and subject to the conditions in the application from the staff.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to item number 10, 16-032, special exception at 1110 Washington Street, tax map 0901305 in 18. It's a special exception to permit the establishment of an approximately 991 square feet liquor store on the ground floor of a parking garage near the corner of Assembly and Main Street. Property is zone C5, and it is within the design development overlay. And the applicant is here and can answer any questions.
Hello, my name is Julie Ann Narang, and my husband and I are the owners of Low Spirit Solutions.
Barely hear you, Julie.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Julie Ann Narang, and my husband and I are the owners of Low Spirit Solutions. We're here today to ask for variance to be able to provide the community and downtown needs with retail liquor establishment.
Could y'all go through the criteria for us on that?
Yes, sir.
Exhibits today.
You just want us to run through each?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
All right, so on the number one, will not have substantial adverse impact on vehicular traffic. Our store is, our intended store hopefully, will be, our target audience is going to be local residents mainly, and business people from the downtown area. So we expect most of them to be walking customers. Historically, 75% of alcohol sales at a retail liquor establishment occur during the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. So any driving traffic that may be downtown, usually the usual business hours end at 5. So on-street parking, there's plenty of on-street parking in front of the location. Not to mention there is. Thanks. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. The retail location is in a parking garage, so there's plenty of metered parking there as well. Number 2, adverse impact on adjoining properties in terms of environmental factors. So this is a retail business. There's no music, there's no loitering, there's no lights or lasers or glare or vibration or fumes or odors. We don't make anything, we're not creating everything. Everything comes prepackaged. In fact, it's illegal to remove it from the packaging. It's illegal to open them, it's illegal to consume on premise. So there's no impact as far as those environmental factors. Number 3, as far as orientation and spacing of buildings, there won't be any alteration to the physical building as far as outside, or, we don't have any need to adapt the building in any physical form.
Placement of an inconspicuous sign and maybe some beautification by potted plants outside. That would be the extent of it.
Okay. Number 4, public safety or nuisance conditions detrimental to the public interest. We have other locations, and we, as a company policy, are very protective and respectful of all our customers, but we demand that all of them respect the other customers. So we don't tolerate any loitering, any spanging or request of change, and in fact, with our other locations, we actually have improved the environment because of the lack of people requesting money or change from other customers. 5, to create a concentration or proliferation of the same. Obviously, there's no other locations in the area, which is why we're here. I mean, the market is definitely not saturated. 6, is it consistent with the character and intent of the underlying district in the zoning district description? In my research, I found that they wanted that this, what it says here, typically dominated by surface or structured parking areas and a mixture of business uses. Well, there are no other retail liquor establishments in the area, so we satisfy that requirement, and the I think the character of the I think the character and the intent of the underlying district is to promote residential development in a pedestrian-friendly environment. That's our main goal, is to provide a location close, within walking distance for the residents of the area and visitors. There's 2 major hotels there that, a lot of tourists like to partake in alcoholic beverages.
I guess you
Number
could
7.
say that you might even improve the traffic problems that Greens has if they don't have some of their customers, because that's awful down there.
7, the proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with the permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property. I mean, it's a retail location. Although it's within the city, I think there's been some concerns about it being close to the library. But from the front of the library, you can't see, you won't be able to see from inside the building. You're not going to be able to see, there's no on-premise consumption. So all you'll see is people walking in and out of the building. And when they walk out with brown paper bags. So there's nothing detrimental to maybe younger people that they're concerned about. 8. Not adversely affect the public interest. Well, it's a legal product. There's no consumption on premises, like I said. And I don't know how it would affect or how it would be a detriment to the public interest. I'm sure we're going to hear from people that think it will be, but some of the people we've talked to actually have, been very happy at this proposal, just because it's close and convenient for them.
Is that testimony somewhere in here? Or
What's that?
you said some of the people that we've talked to.
Well, it's not really documented, and I'm sure it was just personal research that we did.
That was a good question, because we have a few letters of opposition. We have a few letters of opposition. Just quick question, some of the people that you've talked to, what do they say? The pros and the cons of it. What do they say pertaining to this liquor store? What are some of the benefits? Did they speak to you about some of the benefits of the liquor store being in a centralized location? No, I'm saying the people that you're referring to, did they speak to you of any particular benefits of it? I can understand, it's right there, centrally located, because I know a lot of USC students, they live around there, so I guess a lot of people would benefit from it. But I just wanted to know, I like to hear both sides. I like to hear both sides of the coin.
The main thing here is that there's a stigma against liquor stores.
Yeah.
Right? People, they get an idea, an impression of a liquor store, and it's dark and dirty and seedy, dungeon-like kind of place. And in this day and age, if you don't cater to your customers, you're not going to make it. The customers we want are the customers who live in that area, who are students. We want to create a very, unintimidating location. It's going to be bright, it's going to be clean, it's going to be, we specialize in customer service. And, economically speaking, we wouldn't be able to survive if we didn't cater to our customers. One of the concerns was $60 million apartment complex going up near or across, half the way. I was under the impression that is supposed to be geared towards young professionals, maybe some students. I don't think any young professionals or students are going to be put off.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I understand.
Let's face it, most of them are probably, a large portion of our customer base. So, downtown Columbia must have 50, maybe more, on-premise alcohol establishments. They go there, they drink. They have festivals downtown. They have, First Thursday on Main. They have, I know the Art Museum does a lot of things. They all have alcohol They sell alcohol right there on the street. They close down the street for it. I mean, we have an establishment that you walk in, you buy your product, and you leave. You go home or you go to wherever you go to drink, and there's no on-premise consumption. Yet every corner has a place that sells alcohol. So,
I mean, you totally satisfied what I was asking. Thank you.
I mean, I think one of the major concerns is just the public safety nuisance consideration, given how close it is to the school and the library. I mean, can you?
under state law,
Let's,
I'm not sure what the,
just to try, and,
safety issues
well,
are.
let's just see if there's anybody else that wants to have any further
Okay.
testimony, and then we can come back to y'all on that.
That would be
okay?
wonderful.
Great. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor? And if you were not sworn, let me know at the beginning, if you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, so that I can swear you in, please. Barely. Is that mic on?
So this, Scott Corey Dunbar, I have been sworn in.
Okay.
I just purchased Franklin's Printing, which is 4 doors down. In my conversations with the landlord in purchasing, he said, you know, there was potential of 2 upscale restaurants coming into the retail space on our block that is, as you guys call it, a parking garage. I like to look at it in a professional way of how we're looking at the developing the neighborhood. And so the commitment is to have upscale and to assist the city in growing the appeal of our city, let's call it. So I'm personally have put in $185,000 of my money into this business. I'm going to be leasing equipment probably in $120,000 range. So I have over $250,000 at stake that I've invested. I lived in the Northeast for 30 years. I was a vice president of a hotel company in marketing, and my appeal to come to Columbia, not to Aiken, where I live in the county, is because of the gentrification that's going on. So not only is it about appealing to the current residents and students, but it's appealing to what the aspiration is. And I can't make that decision for the zoning board. My request is that why hasn't this piece of land been already allowed to have a liquor store? You know, why is it, if the zoning is about the library, et cetera, I agree, it's quite a distance. We need to have liquor stores in our community if we're going to appeal to people to live there and work there. I don't know of any other liquor stores. Maybe there are 20. I haven't explored the neighborhood. So my request is to really, that the board make sure we understand what the marketing vision is, how it's going to be positioned, which they have addressed somewhat in a positive way. The convenience store that recently opened at the end of the building, they have, you know, grab a beer and go type thing. And that's not bringing in the residents and the students. That's bringing in a lot of the workers in the neighborhood. I'm not saying that is negative, but that's not a young professional targeted business and how they're cleaning it up. Again, I'm making a big investment into repositioning our business and the store. I'm not speaking for or against necessarily. What I'm speaking for and against is where do we want this neighborhood to go and how can we best develop it. And that's my call.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? about this subject?
My name's Robert Cox. I'm the previous owner, okay, of Franklin's Printing. He may have addressed it. I'm old and can't hear. But nuisance control, loitering outside on the sidewalks, would be a concern to me. And traffic. Traffic is very congested at that entranceway to the parking lot. And adequate parking for customers, it would be limited to the number of parking meters that they have on the first floor.
What about the parking garage?
I'm sorry?
What about the parking garage?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
They had parking meters on the first floor. And those have been limited. At one time, they were, I don't recall how many, but they've been cut back as the city has leased out the parking places. So congestion at the area for loading and unloading for the other businesses that are there would be a concern to me. And maybe they addressed that, I'm not sure, when they were talking because I couldn't hear. But that would be a concern to me because it is extremely congested at that entrance.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please just come up to the podium if you'd like to. Did were you sworn in, sir? Really? Okay, great.
Good morning. My name is Bob. I am to oppose this special exception. I'm also ex-president of the Arsenal Hill Neighborhood Association, which is close proximity to this particular property. Without a doubt, the location of this property would, or this exception would certainly have a lot to do with its proximity to the library, to the St. Peter's School and church, and to the new residential and commercial projects which are going on in the inner city there, and the quality of life of the city center. I certainly understand each proposal that says that there would be no loitering, but I think the control of loitering around liquor stores historically within any city area is not one that one could easily control. When it comes to students and the concentration of students within the downtown and city center and within the area, and you mentioned greens and relieving the traffic, I certainly don't see that there would be a real desire to encourage increased alcohol consumption amongst students where you have a concentration of them. The opportunities for them to obtain alcohol in the establishments that are already within that, that enclave encourages problems in terms of their health and safety. Though this is not an on-premises consumption location, it certainly has a lot to do with encouraging their alcohol use. I think that should be a concern. When it comes to investments of property and traffic and so on, the location is certainly one that may hinder the actual comfort of maybe living in the area and or in the future want to establish businesses. So in that sense, and as a former or as a long-term resident of the Arsenal Hill Neighborhood Association or Arsenal Hill Neighborhood, I completely oppose the application for a special exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come testify, please? Just come to the podium, please. Were you sworn in, sir? Okay, I can swear you in when you get up here. Would you please raise your right hands? Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, I'm Matt Kennel, the president and the CEO of the City Center Partnership. And I have with me today Martha Studstill, who is a merchant on Main Street and also the chair of our CCP Marketing Committee. The City Center Partnership is the managing entity for the 36-block City Center Business Improvement District under contract with the City of Columbia. In addition to marketing, performing clean and safe services, homeless outreach, and planning for downtown, we actually work to recruit and retain businesses. In fact, Jenna Bridgers is here with us today. Her sole job is to try to bring new businesses into the area, including retail businesses, and we realize the importance of street-level retail. We do work hard to recruit businesses which are not located elsewhere and bring new customers to the area, but we do not consider a small liquor store located at the very visible entrance to a public parking garage to be one of those. We are especially concerned of its highly visible location with a plain view of a proposed 300-unit, $60 million residence, the nationally recognized Richland Library with its wonderful children's and teen sections, and St. Peter's Catholic Church and School. We are also very concerned because of the large number of homeless persons in the area, many of which visit the Richland Library during the day. We know from statistics from the United Way that 20% of the homeless people in Columbia do have alcohol addiction problems, and we think by making this convenient location right across from the areas that service the homeless is not a positive thing. We're concerned about increased panhandling for alcohol, street disorder problems such have been mentioned, such as loitering. And we have heard from several merchants in the area and leaders from 2 adjacent neighborhood associations. You just heard from one of them, and also the Downtown Neighborhood Association, who are opposed to this exception request, and we have to respect their opinion. For these reasons, we ask that this special exception for a liquor store be denied, but we will work with the property owners to try to find a more suitable tenant that does not require a special exception. They are asking you for a special exception. This is not allowed by right. We know and respect them, and we'll work hard with the owners to find a better retailer that will enhance downtown rather than detract from it. Martha, do you want to add anything to that?
My concerns, I have been in business since October of 2008. We have made great strides on Main Street, and I think that this with
I'm sorry, ma'am, for the record, would you just state your name and the business?
But just having easier access to alcohol for the homeless population and for the student population, many of whom are underage, I think would just be, would slow down our efforts to continue to improve the Main Street district. I echo Mr. Connell's concerns.
And did you say you had a business?
I do. I own Uptown Gifts at 1204 Main.
Gotcha. And your name is Martha?
Martha Studstill.
Studstill. Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else to speak? Could we hear from the applicant again? So I guess just kind of trying to boil this into a nutshell, I think you can see that, there's a unique situation here, and I really do understand that the downtown has changed a lot, and I understand why there's never been a liquor store here, because there's never been anybody after 5 o'clock downtown at all that would buy anything. So I think that's a good sign that we want retail to come in here, but I do understand that there is a great concern with a lot of homeless people that are downtown that really, they're alcoholics, a lot of them. And so that's, I can understand why that would be a big concern with the people that are charged with, trying to make downtown a better place. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. First of all, that location, as you can see up there, it's less than 1,000 square feet. We've already calculated, we're actually going to close one of our liquor stores down in order to open this one, because there's a limit of stores number of stores you can open in the state.
Can you talk just a little closer to the microphone? Is it turned? I think you might have turned it off accidentally.
Better?
I think you turned it off.
So we need to have at least $300,000 in sales. If the main opposition is the homeless people we have experience with homeless people. They buy the $2 bottles of the least inexpensive kind of liquors that we sell. We're not going to, if that's the problem for people, we can limit what we're going to sell. We can have, that's not the demographic we're after. We're after, we want to make higher sales. So, if we don't carry anything under $5, these homeless people aren't going to, they don't want that stuff. We can only have a limited number of products, and we cater to our customers. It's a fluid business, no pun intended. It's going to be changing. It changes to what our customers want. If our customers decide that they want wine, and they want, we're going to order wine for them. It could turn into a wine boutique, or a Scotch Haven, or a bourbon center. And as far as the loitering in the area, we visited this location 3 times. Each time we visited, we were solicited for change. Each time.
Minutes.
There's no liquor store there now. What's happening? Why is that happening? Because it's a vacant building? I mean, when we're there, we're actually going to make a strong effort. I mean, when we went to see the person showing us the property, even didn't say anything to the person. I mean, obviously, there's no.
We understand that. I walk in that area quite often, and I understand that. And my only question is your store going to improve it or not, or make it worse?
Well, I mean, we're very diligent, because you come to a store and somebody asks you for money. Well, you're not going to want to come back to that place. If every time you go there, somebody approaches you for change, it's hard to say no to people every time, and people feel awkward. They're not going to put themselves through that. So we are very conscious about making sure that our customers are welcome and they don't feel that awkwardness, so that they come back. Not just in our store. I mean, never what would happen in our store, but outside our store too. We're very observant of what goes on outside our store, because, I mean, that's where they're entering and exiting from there. We have to be, diligent in that manner too. So.
Is there any questions from the board? Would you like to testify again, sir? Come on up to the podium.
Again, I'm one of the neighbors. This close to speaking in favor. When I wanted to not have a pro or a con, approach, want to look at pro and cons, but not make a decision, because it is how you zone the neighborhood.
Sir, I cannot hear you.
Okay, so now you can hear me.
Yep, that's great.
My apologies. I'm one of the neighbors. I'm very close to speaking in favor of this store. I don't know enough of the background, whether or not they operate other stores that are well operated, et cetera. Knowing gentrification, we need to have liquor stores in the neighborhood to give the full round of product. As they mentioned, there are, I think they said 23, but there are many restaurants serving alcohol. If they police, they won't be serving many students in purchasing, because they're going to be younger than 21, many of them. I personally know many Catholics and First Baptists and other religions that drink. If this store is operated well, they won't walk out and drink on the street, because they aren't going to want to show it, given the prejudices of, all of us. So I think it's important that, well, the loitering that I see is on Assembly Street. It is sometimes it's people coming out of the convenience store with their beer. I don't know if they're selling beer. They're talking about doing wine and their spirits. Again, it's going to be how they operate and market the store, and I think it's very positive for the realtors, the people that want to attract people to buy and purchase downtown, that there be a liquor store. Again, I said earlier, I don't know if there are others in the area, and I don't know the zoning.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Yes, sir. Would you like to come to this podium? please.
Again, my name is Bob Wynn. I just want to put it on the verbal record here that I am aware that you have before you a written opposition from Captain Auld, I believe it is, who is with the CPD, or Columbia Police Department. And I'm quite aware, as I'm sure you are, that the police department and the Metro North region in particular, which covers the downtown city center area, is in opposition of this as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further testimony? Is there any discussion?
I think that this is, it's a interesting case, only because, you know, this location, where it is, and the amount and the issues and concerns we have with the homeless folks in the area now. And I wasn't real sure which way I was leaning until I heard the applicant actually mention that the 3 times they've been there, they've been approached for change and things, and I think that kind of helped convince me that it may not be the right area for this type of business. So that's my thoughts on it right now.
I kind of want to echo what you said. Today I actually went to Washington Street. I had to take care of some business, and the gentleman, as I was leaving, the gentleman approached me, asked me for some money. I didn't give it to him. I didn't have any cash to give him. I didn't have anything to give him, so I was approached today, just today, about 2 hours ago. So I definitely understand what you're talking about, Preston.
Our other store.
We're in discussion right now, sir.
Pardon me?
If you would, please just have a seat. We're in
We'll ask
discussion right
you
now.
to come back if we want to.
I would like to know where their other stores are.
I'm pretty sure that the only other store downtown is at Green's Liquor Store, which is on Assembly Street, on the other side of Blossom. Oh, your other personal stores? Could you come back to the podium, please? Where are your other 2 stores? I think that was the question that we have.
Presently, I have 3 stores. 2 are in West Columbia, but the other store that's in Columbia is on Idlewild Boulevard. It's right off of Bluff Road, and if you're familiar with the area, we have a lot of student developments, apartment complexes in the area, but we also are very close to Arthurtown. And when we put our store there, everybody thought we were crazy. But our customers coexist great with one another because of our, because of our store policies. We don't let anybody disrespect anybody, and we don't have a problem with spanging or people asking for change. The 2 gas stations on the corners have benefited from that, because when we prevent them from doing that on our premises, it also helps their customers too, because their customers aren't, confronted with the same thing.
What's the address on Idlewild?
1006 Idlewild Boulevard.
I go there all the time, because, not to your store, but I mean, I'm in the industrial real estate business, and so that's my neighborhood. I don't even remember seeing your store there.
It's actually changed a lot since that picture as well. We have a white picket fence out there. We've landscaped all around the
Stadium Spirits.
The one major issue for me is just number 4, in the special exceptions. I mean, I'm concerned that it creates a substantial adverse impact on public safety and could potentially create a nuisance that that we don't want right there on the gateway to our downtown city, which we're trying to.
I'm not sure if you have an understanding of alcoholics, any kind of addiction, people with addictions, but usually they're very fond of, or they don't try to upset their people who are selling them their product. For that reason, we have a lot of control and power over those people. By requesting them, or actually enforcing the fact that, they're not going to talk to any of our customers for change or for anything really, unless, they're acquaintances. I mean, we really have a lot of power that way. In fact, we're probably going to end up, you're probably going to get letters later on saying that, people are thankful that we're there because apparently nobody else on that street has any concern about these people. Nobody has tried to limit them from talking to their customers.
Might be a more difficult task than you think. Okay, we're going to go ahead into discussion and vote, and appreciate your testimony. Either additional discussion, or can I entertain a motion from someone, please? Any further questions or discussions on the board?
I move that we deny this special exception for obvious reasons. It's ostensible that, it runs the Gallimaufry from 1 to 8, probably times 10. Mainly because I think vehicular and pedestrian safety will be affected, and mainly public safety.
Mr. McKnight? I'm sorry, I'm having problems hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. All right. My main reasons would be for criteria number 1 as well, mainly, but it's especially public safety and nuisance conditions. I feel that it will have a substantial adverse and impact on public safety, or create nuisance conditions that's detrimental to something that we are attempting to build up, and we don't want to, provide a Pandora's box that could just, release a havoc of destruction to this wonderful city of ours. So, with that being said, I move that we deny this special exception.
There's a motion to deny the special exception. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of denying this request for special exception, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Okay. The motion does not carry.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to proceed with next, or would you like to take 5 minutes?
I know that Gene is going to need to leave at 12:30.
I think Mr. Gregg is left, and of course Mr. Hubbard. So we have a quorum. It's up to you. We can proceed on if you'd like to take 5 minutes. It's at your discretion.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We're okay.
Okay.
We're okay.
So,
You want to take 5? Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break.
And then you look at what they had before. So, no, couldn't do that. Can't do that. You can just get it like with that right there. Did you get the name tag and stuff? Thank you.
Get a picture of me too. I like the way. Yes. Oh, okay, all right. He's like my mother when I'm preaching. She's ready. Okay. I know. I agree. I heard. I wholeheartedly. Sometimes I don't want to get too loud, but don't worry. I definitely will. Okay. 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 Trust me, from here on out, it's going to be a little loud. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Andrea. Loud, okay. I sure will. A flat line, okay. Will not happen again. Will not. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you. I kind of see that, yeah. Yeah, because I kind of noticed, like, when the other gentleman, when he was speaking, when he was the other gentleman before us, for this case, you know, and I kind of noticed that, and I saw you kind of looking, and you had a consternation in your face. Don't worry, from here on out, I will definitely be a lot louder. For sure.
Hey. Look, I think,
Yeah.
I'm torn because I really want to have, you know, I'm glad that actually there's an actual, somebody that wants to do an upscale type, you know, wine and spirit sales, but I do not know if they're the right people to do it, and that's the right concept, and the right location. But yeah, no problem. It's a sign of progress, though, because we wouldn't have even had anybody would even think about doing that before. Yeah. We need a kudzu bakery down there. That would be awesome. Kudzu Bakery, you never heard of that? Guys from Georgetown, they have a location at Pawleys Island and one in Georgetown. And one in Mount Pleasant. Yeah. Right. That's good news. Yeah, if you're ever in Mount Pleasant or Georgetown, they're probably so it's good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Sure. So you have some interest in Pawleys Island, Georgetown area?
My wife is from Georgetown.
Get out of here. Yeah. We, my parents own real estate. We bought a house right there. It's a place called The Hill. You know where 21st Avenue is? It was with 21st Avenue. They bought it in '94. The reason I was there was
Where
21st Avenue, King Street.
oh,
In
Georgetown?
21st. No, Myrtle Beach.
Okay, Myrtle Beach. Yeah.
Like right there by the convention center.
Yeah.
With my parents, my father, they're into real estate or whatever. And it was when Broadway the beach was nothing but woods. I don't know if you remember back in '94. It was nothing but woods. Then they tore it down. They built the convention center up, and then now we have the sports complex right across the street.
So they bought that from your family?
They bought what it is. Let me tell you, my parents do. They buy like tax liens. I must admit, tax liens. These tax lien property. The family was infighting. But now my brother, I got a brother that teaches there. He teaches a speech and pathologist at Myrtle Beach. Well, he's not at Myrtle Beach no more. He's at one of the like the lowers now. The reason he's not there no more because he was literally all you had to do was cross 21st Ave and Myrtle Beach High is right there. So he got a little too lackadaisical. So he just wake up. He loves that. I love Columbia more than Myrtle Beach. My very first job was at Reading Italian Nights right there across from Ribbons Believe It or Not. Believe it or not, on 9th Avenue. 9th Avenue South. That's 9th Avenue North. And anyway, but Columbia, see, but they don't have anything. The pavilion's not there anymore. It was right. I used to work right in front of the Rainbow. The pavilions are not there anymore. The only thing we have is Family King. There's nothing like. Myrtle Beach used to be, man. I used to love Myrtle Beach. The Arcade, nothing's there anymore.
We used to drive up there a lot.
Yeah. Shag, they used to shag right there.
It's so
Commercialized.
traffic now.
But yeah.
It's a terrible drive.
I know. Burroughs and Chapin, they own about 90% of the beach, and they got a little greedy. They try to do some Myrtle Beach speed park stuff. That felt like it's like a ghost town. Whenever I go home, I don't go home that often, but whenever I go home, I was there for the 4th of July. But I'm probably gonna go. We had this timeshare that we go to at the end of August. I'm checking it out. Columbia's a place to be. I love this place. Where you from? You from here? I'm from Columbia. I love it. It's a wonderful place.
Everybody else is here as well. Yeah. Really? Yeah. All right. We're ready. Okay, Brian, can we move on to the next case, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming back from recess now, just for the record that Mr. Gregg had to leave, and of course, Mr. Hubbard left earlier. We still do have a quorum with 4 people, and we'll move on to our next case, which is item 11, 16-033 variance at 1401 through 1413 Assembly Street and 1011 through 1019 Washington Street, tax map numbers 09013, 0306 through 13 and 0901303 and a portion of 01. What this is a variance to the parking requirements for a multifamily building. The applicant has requested a variance to the parking requirements in order to construct a 15-story, 305-unit apartment complex on a site totaling approximately a little over 1 acre. 593 parking spaces are required based on the unit count per our ordinance. It is and can be and has been reduced to 410 because of the provisions found in 17311C2 of the overlay district that allows a certain reduction up to 50% for on-street parking, basically the metered spaces. There are approximately 183 of those. So what we're left with is 410 spaces needed to be provided on site. The applicant is proposing 151 parking spaces on site. The variance request of the balance of 259 parking spaces are what is before you today. The applicant also does show on the plan 90 motorized scooter and 160 bicycle parking spaces provided in a covered and secured structure on site. The applicant is here and can answer any questions that you may have.
Would the applicant like to come up to the podium? And gentlemen, I don't know if everybody there came in early, but if you all were not, if anybody was not sworn in and wants to testify, let me know and I'll be glad to swear you in.
Good morning. My name is Robert Neely, and I'm the architect on the project. And I'm here today with Jay Case, the developer, and also with Jonathan Guy from Kimberly Horn, who we've been working with in terms of evaluating the parking.
Sir, if I could ask you to lift that microphone up, it's hard. I know that if you want to use the hand mic so you don't have to lean over, I think we can get that for you as well. Sorry about all the technical difficulties today.
It's not working. Is that better? Any better? Better?
Much better.
Okay. So again, my name is Robert Neely. I'm the architect working on the project with the developer, CRG. Jay Case is here with me today, as is Jonathan Guy with Kimberly Horn, who we've been working with on the parking studies and also just evaluating the local context in terms of coming up with our parking strategies, which has brought us to applying for this variance. Also, I brought some supplemental materials that you have in front of you now. I'm sorry, we submitted the drawings that were required by the application, and then I realized that sometimes it's better to see something more three-dimensional just to understand the architecture that we're proposing for this site. So just if you wanted to just flip through those, just to give you an idea. We've been working on the project for just about a year, within about a week of a year now, and we've been working with the city. We've also been working with the library, Melanie Higgins next door. We've had, many conference calls, many meetings here in town, and we've really revised the design. We've scaled it back. We've tried to respond to the local scale, the immediate needs, and also addressing the market, the student market, and also just the void of residential down in the downtown district. We've explored it in many different ways, understanding what our market is. We started to craft the program for the building so that we're delivering the right amount of parking. We think of this strategy as a multimodal strategy, whereby we're providing the automobiles, we're also providing motorized scooter spaces within the building, within the 2 levels of structured parking, and then also 160 bicycle spaces. We also recognize that there's available parking within 400 feet of our building, and even beyond. So there's ample parking, and so that all of those things factored in to the design. Also, in terms of just sort of placing our building, we've also designed it working in collaboration with the library,
so that we're sort of sharing some of our spaces. We're granting easements so that the library will, when this project is done, have access to their space, to the children's library, so that the visitors can access it from the west side parking lot, as opposed to going down to Washington Street, walking around and going by, because they don't currently have access to that property. So we're working with them to create easements, just again, part of enhancing the downtown and creating a park between the two buildings. In terms of responding to the criteria, maybe I'll just address those items. In terms of do extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertain to the subject property, as an urban multi-family property, our residents, they'll obviously enjoy pedestrian access to the numerous employment, dining, and entertainment and educational venues. Additionally, just the readily available public transportation, the garage is both planned or current and planned, and future car and bicycle sharing programs. Our residents will have more options for transportation to local activities. Also, as we've known in other projects that we've developed in similar cities, their dependence on the personal vehicle are substantially less for this generation than a property that does not enjoy the amenities, that's not located in an urban area. So we're really addressing the distinction between a suburban multifamily high-rise building and an urban multifamily high-rise building. In terms of item 2, conditions that do not generally apply to other properties in the area. Currently, as you're all aware, the surrounding properties are made up of historic municipal services, the library, retail, and structured surface parking. So our residential use will be unique in terms of the local neighborhood right now. 3, requirements effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the use of the property. I guess the one item that I would sort of point out is that on Assembly Street, that's the dividing line. And the drawing that I have up, or the graphic that's there, Assembly Street is really the demising line between zoning district C4 and zoning district C5. And it's just sort of interesting to note that just to the east in C5, the parking requirement for this project would not be required in terms of having on-site parking. So in a sense, in terms of competition, if there was a multifamily project just literally across the street, they would have an advantage and we would have a burden of providing all the required parking, which they would not have. And while that C5 district, in addition, I mean, they would still have all the same benefits. If anything, I think in terms of access to the Vista, our site is actually closer in terms of the walking distance and a shorter path of travel. In terms of item 4, approval of the variance would not be substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good, and the character of the neighborhood would not be harmed. As I started to allude to before, we feel the project brings the residential component in bringing students and young professionals into the area. So I think that's just going to enhance the neighborhood by having more foot traffic, just greater density, more customers to visit and be served by all the existing businesses and future businesses that you're looking forward to coming into the area. It also helps serve as a link between the city center and the Vista, which both districts offer tremendous amenities to the residents. Also, the northern, as I mentioned, the northern neighbor, the Richland County Library, we're working with them again to give them greater access and sort of working in a collaborative way just to create more public space in between our two buildings. Item 5, section 17.112(3)(b)(6) is a variance, the minimum necessary. We looked at the building, and as I said, over the last year, we've looked at parking and could we provide more and trying to find the right balance. And what we're providing right now is the maximum parking we can with 2 levels. We also have a great advantage in that
not to get too technical, but the grade of the site right now, it falls from east to west. So we have two parking levels, and they're each accessed independently with drive-in, drive-out. It's a great opportunity that the site provides. We have no internal ramps, so that allows us to fit the maximum number of parking spaces because there's no internal ramp. So we're also excavating down. We're going deeper just to allow that, to make sure that we're providing the maximum number of spaces on two levels. In terms of again, just to address the minimum necessary, if we were to add another parking level, and we've looked at this and we've explored it financially, it does add a burden, which questions the feasibility of the project just moving forward with the number of spaces. And that's not the reason we're not doing it. It's in our opinion, and again, based on our experience, it's just for the lifestyle, for the generation, for the market that we're addressing. It seems that we would be overbuilding to provide more parking on a third level. Oh. Apologize. I hear myself just fine. Section 17, 112 to B-7. Is your proposal in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, and will it not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detriment to the public welfare? As I think I've said in the other three, I think that by bringing our project to this site and developing it, we're actually enhancing the neighborhood by bringing a residential community that's only going to foster greater business development within the downtown and the surrounding areas. I think, as I said, that there's ample parking around that. I think should it be needed, it would be in our interest to be sure that we manage that and take care of it just for the success of our project and to ensure that the investment that we're making is a smart one.
Great. So I have a question. I mean, and it would probably be good for you, but I mean, where did you come up with the 151 spaces for 620 residents? Where does that, I mean, in y'all's experience, why is that the only number of spaces that would be necessary?
Hi, my name is, this is the right height for me, so this is going to be perfect. My name is Jay Case, and I am the principal with CRG Realty in charge of the residential group. And specifically to answer your question, just let me step back and sort of give you our thinking on the project. We're doing a number of multifamily projects in cities like Columbia currently. You know, it's a very exciting opportunity for us. You know, the downtown has a nice blend of new and old, a lot of historic buildings that have been rehabbed and a lot of new buildings that have been built. Combined in that university setting, it's an exciting opportunity. And we're doing this in other places. Like today we have a similar meeting in Fort Worth, Texas. We have another project we're building currently in St. Louis, Missouri. We're looking at in the Denver market. And in all of these markets, what our goal is to build to the lifestyle that's not just specific to Columbia, but it's the same in Fort Worth and in these other communities. It's a change perhaps in what we've done in the past, but it's a more pedestrian, a more walker-friendly, a more urban proximate lifestyle. You know, if I digress for 1 second, it's much in the same way that if you lived in an older home, you probably are short on closets and you got a closed-in kitchen. If you live in a new home, you have an open kitchen and you have a lot of closets, walk-in closets and so forth. These are lifestyle changes, and this is what our responsibility as a developer is to recognize and to build to. And so when we craft one of these projects, parking is a big feature. And so we look at it and we say to ourselves, okay, what's the appropriate amount of parking? And there's not a magic formula, and it does vary a little bit community to community, but what we do know is that it is greatly reduced from what it might have been 10, 20 years ago. And so what we're trying to do is to build a successful project. So we don't build a project if we think we're underparked, because all we do then is fail, you know. And so this is the first step for us. If you approve it, we still have to build it, we have to lease it, we have to operate it. So we're not going to try to do something like that just to win this battle. That would be cutting off our nose to spite our face. So how did we come up with 150? What we looked at is, we think there is a lot of parking in the immediate area. We acknowledge that parking is expensive to build. We would not make any money building parking. It would be purely service-oriented. We might charge something to differentiate, you know, the users of our parking from the non-users, but it is not a profit center. Parking space is probably $30,000 to build. Maybe you rent it for $50 a month, maybe. So it's really a service to the project. So we looked at that. We know there's a lot of scooters in use in this area. Biking is big here, but it's big nationally, so we play into that. And we play into the parking that's around us. And even though I know the zoning talks about within 400 feet, but within 800 feet, there's a very substantial garage. So that if somebody's dying to park a car, we think they will have the opportunity to find them around us. But we do need to park enough cars, because we will have some people who will say, you know, absolutely, the security of parking in the building is essential to me. You know, sometimes women feel that way, for example. So we would not provide no parking. So again, there's not a magic formula, but we think 150 solves the need of the absolutes, the people that must have it in the building in order to rent there. We think the rest can find it either through a combination of the scooters and the bikes and the parking that's around it.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor or in opposition to this request for a variance?
Good morning. I have not been sworn in yet.
Oh, let me swear you in, please. Get my little cheat sheet out. I don't have it. I think I can remember it. Do you attest and swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is William Bailey, and my late wife and I have owned the parking lot at Park and Lady Street since 1994. And I'm here today to support their request. And I'm here also to tell you that my lot is only about 50% full. So we are looking for additional people to utilize our parking lot. I'm sorry, did y'all hear me?
I did, but you may want to just start over with that, with the mic.
Sorry. That's okay. My name is William Bailey, and my late wife and I have owned the 3 lots at Park and Lady Street since 1994. It is a surface parking lot. I'm here today to support the request and to also tell you that my lot is only about 50% full. So we're looking for people to use our lot. Thank you.
Quick question for you. How many parking spaces do you have in that lot?
I have 110.
Wow, okay. Thank you. Is anyone else here to speak in favor or in opposition?
Greetings again. I'm Matt Kennel from the City Center Partnership. And I would just like to say that we are in support of this variance request for several reasons. We know from other downtown residential projects that have had variances or are in areas where it's not required, such as the Behringer Building on Main Street, That's an 85-unit apartment project with no parking at all, and it's been 100% occupied since the day it opened. It has been a non-issue. Many of the people do park in surrounding parking facilities, such as the gentleman's lot or in city parking decks or on the street after hours. It just has not been a problem. We also respect very much the point that was made about if this was on the east side of Assembly Street, no parking would be required, and it's literally 200 feet away from that line. So we feel like the developer knows best. They understand their market, and we don't feel like they would be going forward if they didn't feel like it had enough parking. So for those reasons, we support this variance request.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there any discussion on the board, from the board? Well, I would just say that I would have to agree with that, and Clayco was making the $60 million bet, and so I think that they would be the ones that would be the most concerned about the number of parking that would be required for that. I get it, and I'm glad that was a very thoughtful and well thought out answer. Y'all have obviously know your market and know what you need to do. So if there's no further discussion and no further testimony, I'd like to call for a motion. Brian, did y'all have any recommendations on this variance?
I think the answer to this specifically would be, of course, it's up to the board to decide based on the criteria that were presented. Both sides, well, there's only really one side that presented, and they make some valid points. It's just a balance between what's reasonable for downtown and the available parking. I guess, like you said, they're willing to make a $60 million bet on that'll work for them. That being said, too, on the city's parking and on-street parking and the future for potential parking decks to be constructed, the need is there that probably would come into play in the future.
Well, I'd like to make a motion then that we approve this variance based on the written application and testimony of the applicant and their consultants.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Apologize to you in advance for having to wait so long for your... Let Brian come back and he'll announce the next case.
Oh, I'll go ahead and announce. The next case before us is variance 16-034-V, which is 3200 Duncan Street, tax map number 13802-0318. The property is zoned RG1 within the Community Character Overlay District. This property is a corner lot on the corner of Duncan and, I apologize, Walker Street. And the applicant is requesting a variance to the front yard setback requirements in order to construct a two-story single-family residence with attached garage on the lot. The minimum front yard setback is normally 25 feet. However, there's actually a provision within the ordinance that does allow an average of the existing homes. And on that block, it comes to 24 feet 2 inches, so only about 8 inches there. The applicant is proposing a front yard setback of 22 feet instead, which would be a variance of 2.2 feet. And the applicant is present, and we'll be glad to address any questions you may have.
Very good. We have kind of I guess if you've been here all day, kind of realize that we kind of go by the criteria that you did in your application. That'd be great.
My name is Aaron Pazarina. I'm a representative of Celtic Works. I feel it's fairly straightforward for the 3200 block on Duncan Street. Some of the extraordinary circumstances, it is a corner property lot. It's the shallowest lot on the property. Almost looks like it may have been subdivided once upon a time years ago. And one of the biggest things that we feel by adjusting it forward to a 22-foot setback would be more congruent with the rest of the homes in the area. We went out and took site measurements of the rest of the properties. Most of them, there's 3 of them that are under 22 feet. Sorry, 4 of them of the other properties. I don't know if, yeah, there you go. So 4 of them have a about 22 foot setback. And the average actually for that block is actually 20 feet. So we don't feel it, some of the extraordinary circumstances would be that it's just a shallower lot than any of the other properties. By being able to move it forward would give them a greater backyard. As far as the conditions noted above do not generally apply to other property in the area. The fronting on the streets of Duncan Street, the depth of the properties, they're just not generally that deep as it is. Because of the conditions noted above, the requirement. I don't think number 3 isn't really applicable because of the conditions noted above. The requirements of the zoning ordinance effectively prohibit or restrict the use of property. I don't think it would right now would we could have it conform to the zoning requirements presently, but
I think you pointed out that it's a shallow lot and it is a corner lot, which you also have a greater corner side setback than an house would be. So, I mean, I think that you could use that. I think there would be application for that provision to give you relief.
I agree. And as far as the approval of the variance would not be substantially detriment to the adjacent properties. Again, I think that was addressed just with the fact that it's going to be, if anything, more congruent with the other surrounding properties on Duncan Street. It's certainly not going to cause any harm there. Is the variance in the minimum necessary? Is the proposal in harmony with the proposed intent of the zoning ordinances? And again, I think we agree that yes, on both those accounts, our desire is to have the house more congruent with the rest of the properties on the area. I don't know if there's anything else to add.
Yep. 17, the minimum necessary?
Is the variance the minimum necessary? I mean, I'm not really sure I understand that. I mean, the minimum necessary, again, we could, the property could meet the current setbacks, but just as the depth of the lot, we're wanting it to be more just congruent with the rest of the houses. I mean, I guess I don't really understand what it's asking is the variance, the minimum necessary.
You have a site plan that you put there and the building that you're trying to build.
If anything,
approaching the 22 feet, and if you need an extra, 3 feet? Is that what we're looking at on the variance?
Yes, it would be the minimum. I mean, we would really prefer to be able to shift the house even a little bit further forward if at all possible, but yes, it is the minimum of what we feel.
So it's a compromise that you make as the house and the lot.
That's correct. I mean, and again, with the rest of the houses, we have an 18-foot setback on one house. There's a 22-foot setback on several of the others on that street, and a 20-foot. So, the minimum would be met there. Yes.
And then the last one is your proposal in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, and will it not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare?
Yes.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor or opposition to this request for a variance? Any questions from the board? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the request for variance, case number 16-034/V. In reference to the criteria, the extraordinary and exceptional conditions, I feel that the size of the lot and being a corner lot, it does meet that. That also, number 2, does not generally apply to other properties. Does the zoner unreasonably restrict the use of the property? I would say yes, due to the size of it. Allowing the variance would not be detrimental to adjacent property. Per the applicant, is the minimum necessary? Yes. And I feel it would not be detrimental to the public welfare if we approve it.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion, variance carries.
Mr. Chairman, that was the last case, and we don't have any other business. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. We are now adjourned. Thank you.